Hi, I'm Carrie Toth from Somewhere to Share. I'm not in front of my green screen, so my couch keeps trying to poke in on the background. I'm going to delete the background in just a minute so that it's not so annoying to have it blur in and out. But I did want to show you something. I've seen the question a couple times and I promised a video, and it's just taken me a long time to find the time to make it. How do I know what kind of proficiency my students are going to gain by doing something like SOMOS or something like WAES, or by reading readers in the classroom? And what I wanted to show you is that this is what the national data looks like. What's behind me is actually kind of a graph of the national data based on student proficiency after certain numbers of years in a language program. So the first little line here is in a 9th and 10th grade program. So if your students stay in for 2 years, and that's honestly across the United States, we know that a majority of students take only 2 years of language. Now your program, I know that as a CI program, I see a lot more stay in for 3 and 4 than I did when I was a textbook program, but we know that not a lot of schools are moving to CI. And so really they have, hundreds and hundreds of kids in Spanish 1 and 2, and then the numbers really decline into the Spanish 3-4 AP. So after a 2-year program, the average on national testing shows that they get to about a novice high. But then the crazy thing is that after a 4-year program, really they only get about to the intermediate low range. So they go from making simple sentences to making series of simple sentences, but they don't have any language skill that allows them to use their language in a functional capacity. So that's been a problem nationwide. And one of the things that AAPPL has really been changing their whole philosophy toward using grammar and context, using 90% language in the classroom, teaching with the idea of our students acquiring the language rather than learning about the component parts of the language. And so CI curricula like SOMOS and like WAES and like Readers for Learners are designed to help our students increase their proficiency. So so students in a 6 to 12 program can make it up to the intermediate mid-level, but it really takes a grade 3 to 12 program to get to intermediate high. Now in Illinois, we offer the state seal of biliteracy for intermediate high, but in order to earn that in 4 years, like think about the hoops I have to jump through to get my students achieving the same proficiency level as a student who's been in language class from 3rd grade to 12th grade, like an immersion program, and now here I have them just 9th grade to 12th grade in our program. So what do we do? How do we change our classrooms so that we can get increased proficiency in our students? And that's what I'd like to offer some suggestions about. So for me and for our program, it has started with a CI-based curriculum. I just want to share my data with you. The Seal of Biliteracy in Illinois, the pilot year was 2014. And in the pilot year, my school piloted along with a couple of other schools from the Chicagoland area in trying out the tests to see, how the students would score at that time. And so I'm just going to openly and honestly share with you what my journey has been and how I have continued to try and raise student proficiency, and what some of the things that we've done in the classroom to increase proficiency have looked like. So let me pull these up. So I was already using comprehension-based methods at the time of, at the time of 2014 when this happened. Hold on, I'm going to try and close these comments because I wrote those for if I shared this document with people, but I'm actually just going to talk about them to you. At that time, I tested only my Spanish 4 students. We were using a CI-based curriculum in levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. We were doing complete storytelling, which was awesome. And if you look down here, on our reading and listening, we were doing great. Our scores were pretty high. We were in the intermediate 1 to intermediate 5 range. So we were definitely beating the national average. But when it came down to listening and speaking, we were totally on the national average line for the intermediate, low, novice, high. Really, we were more in the novice high. They weren't skilled at writing or speaking about a broad variety of topics. At this time, we were reading very little in the classroom. We were definitely doing more story-based units. We were using Look, I Can Talk from Blaine Ray. And all of the units were just based around story. And I wasn't, having class discussion, and they weren't doing interpersonal discussion. And so as we continued on, I took these scores then. This was our first time testing like this. And so, I used this to inform my practice. And that's what I hope that you all do every time you look at results on anything for your students, that you take those as a chance to inform your practice and come back the next year and try something a little different. So at that time, I had been working for Fluency Matters for a little while. I started using the Quintame Moss stories, and I started incorporating some readers into the classroom. So the next year, we incorporated 2 readers at each level. And in that, all we did, we're still using a story-based curriculum. We've now incorporated readers, but around the topic of readers, suddenly by adding readers to my classroom, I had these stories, I had these readings, and then the readers gave us the opportunity to do a lot of discussion, because we have this topic, this big, deep story. So it's a story, but it's a story with a lot of detail. And that's one of the things that is key and essential in becoming an intermediate level speaker, reader, listener, writer, that you can identify key details and that you can talk and use details. So if you look, the next year I tested 21 Spanish 4 students, and we had intermediate 4s, and then we were up to intermediate 5s. And I even had several kids who placed at the advanced low level just by adding these 2 readers. So I thought, what would happen if we added some more readers to this mix? So the next year we added some more readers, and we added 1 more reader per level. And this time I tested 26 kids. The program had grown a little bit. One thing that I did notice was that we had a bigger spread of abilities. This below N4 on the listening and speaking, that was a microphone malfunction. And so that one wasn't scored. So that student retested, and their score is in here as well. So you can kind of see, you can see that 26 students completed the speaking test because 2 of them retook it. 24 students did the writing test because nobody retook it. 47 students did the reading, 45 the listening. So 45 students did the listening. Not everybody. I didn't say that very well. So I tested my Spanish 4s. I had 2 sections of Spanish 4 that year, big group of Spanish 4s that year. My Spanish 4s were given the listening and reading for free. I paid for them out of the Spanish Club Fund, and they could opt to pay the $15 to take the listening, the listening and writing and speaking, sorry. And 24 of them opted to, so about half opted to take a little more than half opted to take the writing and the speaking. So a couple redid the reading after they got done. They wanted to try and earn the seal of biliteracy. So we had some score in the advanced, we had some score in the I4. That actually did not qualify for the state seal because the state seal is at the intermediate 5 level. So I'm still looking like, what's the key? How am I going to get these kids up to the level of a 3 through 12 program in 4 years? So in 2017, I added a 4th reader per level, and I added some FER to my library. This also was my first year in a new school district. They had never read before. They had been in the textbook. And so we did reading, we did, CI-based units. We had a really good year. I had a 3 and 4 combined class. There were 23 kids in there. None of them were willing to take the writing and the speaking. They were so scared because they had never written or spoken in class before. But look how great they did after just 1 year with all these readers and all this FER. They killed it on the writing, on the reading, and on the listening. So the next year I was like, come on, guys, like the new kids coming up, like we've had a little time. So the next year, these kids have had now a year and almost a second year of CI based stuff. But look again, like even after just a year and 3/4, they're killing it on the reading and listening, and they're already up to way above the national average on their listening and speaking. So this new school is making great progress as I continue to try and find ways to get them up to above the national average, which they are. Like, look at all of these kids. Intermediate 1 is the national average, and all of these guys are falling above that national average. Also, very cool thing, in 2018, we started being able to award the global seal of biliteracy. The global seal of biliteracy is at intermediate 4. So all of these students were able to earn the global seal of biliteracy, which is a micro credential. All of these micro credentials are great on our students' scholarship applications and as they're applying for jobs and as they're looking to set themselves apart in their career fields. So the next year, check it out. This year, I gave the test to 20 Spanish 4s, 40 Spanish 3s. I had 3 Spanish 3s qualify for the state seal of biliteracy, 10 qualified for the global seal of biliteracy at the functional level. 4 of my Spanish 4s qualified for the state seal of biliteracy. 12 of them qualified for the global seal of biliteracy. And 1 girl qualified for the global seal of biliteracy at working fluency, which is advanced low in all 4 modes, which is college senior level performance. So this, at my new school now, I've been there 2017, 2018, 2019. So 3 years in this classroom where we're using FER, 4 readers a year, Somos curriculum in level 1. Now, as soon as I moved to my new school, we started using the Somos curriculum. As soon as I moved to my new school, we're using My Way Us curriculum. At the 3 and 4 level, I had been writing those units little by little. They were developing as we went along. And so our proficiency has now jumped way up. Now these scores are for 3 and 4s. So if you look, we do have, sometimes you'll see a below N4. That means kind of unscorable. So that can be a microphone malfunction. It can be, sometimes it's a kid that panics and starts crying. I mean, kids get under stress sometimes when they're sitting in the test. So this particular year, I had one that burst into tears, turned off her test and ran away. And so we ended up having her just start over because she had clicked through a couple of test prompts. And I mean, it rendered the test unscorable. So you're going to have, sometimes your data may not show, exactly what happens in your classroom. But to see the growth in your students as the years go by, I would encourage you to start looking at, this is all from the AAPPL exam, and it gives me the chance to just monitor how what we're doing in the classroom has an effect on the students that I have. So 2020, we had just taken the AAPPL in 2020. I'm going to tell you, I did not put the chart in here. Our 2020 results were very interesting. My first hour class took the AAPPL, and then my 7th hour class took the AAPPL. And my first hour class got back their results, and they all scored intermediate 1. Every kid in the class scored an intermediate 1, no matter the level of their language, no matter the variations in what they said in their speaking test. This was on the speaking section. No matter what they said, they all scored an intermediate 1. 7th hour scores came back, and they were anywhere from novice 4 all the way up to advanced 1. But first hour, all across the board, intermediate 1. And so I asked for a rescore, and then it was 2020. So you know what happened? The pandemic hit and we never got back to school. And the rescore, they said, they stood by their scoring. in spite of the fact that an entire class all scored the same thing. So we don't have good scores. Like I don't have solid data for 2020. And then last year I didn't have students who were able or willing to test because we were hybrid at March last year, and they were going to have to test at home. So this year we're going to try to go back into the computer lab and test again. And so we'll see. We've seen all this growth over all the years, but I have no doubt that this year we're going to see a lull down, because the last 2 years have been really hard on us. But the goal then is to take whatever data comes in this year and use that data to try and move forward in the years to come. Giving students, when they see this data and they see, oh, I got an I1 on speaking, but I got an I4 on writing. So I know that on the next time I really need to just work on, what am I going to say when I speak? So it gives them kind of a picture of where their language skills have holes, so that they know what's next for them in their progression toward being speakers. The data speaks for itself. I'm not kidding you. We are 100% Somos, 100% readers, 100% WAS. Like we don't supplement with a bunch of grammar drills. We don't have a bunch of grammar worksheets laying around. Like our students are doing these things and getting the 2019 results. I mean, we're sorry about 2020 and 2021. That's been a disaster. And I know that our 2022 is probably going to look like a disaster too, but that's where we all are right now. And we just meet our students where they are and move on from there. But I hope that as we move forward, we get back on that track to like, how can we get our students to the highest proficiency? And I really think that packing them full of input, we're teaching for, Scott Benedict called his program Teach for June. We're teaching for year 4. Like you can look at them at the end of year 1 and think, oh, they don't, they can't do whatever that my year 1s in the textbook used to be able to do, like they can't identify all the accent marks on all these things, or they can't conjugate a verb. But what can they do that is beyond what your old level 1s used to be able to do? Or, how much more can they write? How much are they creating with language that your level 1s never could before? And that's the important thing. An intermediate creates. It's a mess. There's going to be mistakes and errors. That's the biggest thing that you need to keep in mind. When you look at it, it's easy to say, oh, in level 1, they were perfect. They never made any mistakes. And now in level 2, they're a mess. They didn't learn anything. They didn't retain it. Not true. The hallmark of intermediate language is that it's a mess. It's a disaster, because novice is this neat little tiny pyramid where they just kind of parrot back all the stuff they've acquired from us in chunks, like, ¿Cómo estás? Muy bien, gracias. Like they've learned these responses that sound perfect, but when they have to now take and recombine their language, it starts to be all over the place. And it sounds like they don't know what they're talking about, but really it's their brain trying to reposition the pieces of the puzzle to say things that are on their mind and on their heart. And we should be honoring that. Every time you take off points for spelling, and you take off points for accents, and you take off points for verb endings, you're telling them you messed up. This isn't good. And then they're going to hesitate to create. And if they hesitate to create, that's going to be that vicious cycle of kids never getting past the novice, high, intermediate, low marker. Because if they can't create, if they can't recombine and make stuff into new sentences and use it in new contexts, then they can't ever be intermediate, mid, and intermediate high. So I'm going to ask you, please rethink how you've shift your paradigm about what proficiency means to you, because an advanced low, the college senior who studied abroad comes back and takes the OPI and needs to score an advanced low to get their certification to teach. Some of them struggle to do that. Some of you may have struggled to do that. Advanced low means they're comfortable and confident using present, past, and future in a lot of contexts, a lot of situations, but they still make mistakes. Are we asking our 2s to do that and our 3s to do that? when college seniors struggle to do that, sometimes even after study abroad. It doesn't say anything about subjunctive and all the perfect tenses and all the imperfect subjunctive, and the command forms, literally present, past, and future, have to be the center of our mastery so that our students can talk about what they did, what they will do, and what they're doing right now comfortably and confidently. And then the others we sprinkle in as, cool grammar and context, advanced structures, but things that enhance them and make them upper advanced level speakers, not just the basic advanced level speakers. So be sure to kind of refocus, readjust your gaze on what the exact target is for the language program. And then you're going to see your students soar and be able to hit your targets and hit your goals. Hope this helps. And if you have any questions, just send me an email, Carrie@somewheretoshare.com. Thanks. Bye-bye.